the A to Z Sports Big Orange Podcast. I am Charlie Burris. That is Zach Reagan. Wherever you listen throughout the world, we thank you so very much for listening to our little show here. We talk everything Vols every week here on the Big Orange Podcast. If you want to listen to that on the reg, go over to the A to Z Sports Podcast Network feed on Apple and Spotify. When you get there, rate, review, but most importantly, subscribe. If you do subscribe, you won't miss our shows when we drop them on Mondays. And speaking of Mondays, it is one right now at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and that means we're live on YouTube. Go to the A to Z Sports Nashville YouTube channel and subscribe because we live stream there, again, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Mondays. But now we have the A to Z Sports Tennessee Vols channel. Search that up on YouTube, and actually, it's right there in the description of this here live stream. Go there. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, because eventually, I'm not entirely sure, it could be very soon, we're going to live stream from there instead of the A to Z Sports Nashville feed. So go hit up A to Z Sports Tennessee Vols on YouTube, subscribe there, and very soon, we hinted at this during the game day show, myself and Austin Stanley, there's going to be new original content coming there from a face that some folks may know, especially if you live in the Nashville area. You may know somebody who's going to be hopping on the channel. At Charlie_Burris, at TNT, at A to Z Sports, A to Z Sports.com for everything that Zach writes. I also usually advertise Facebook, but just don't go to Facebook. That's my suggestion. It's not, just kidding. We love our Facebook viewers. It's definitely a different planet over there, though. I will say that much. All righty. Zach. What a week it is about to be. You can feel the energy in the air. Because this is what it's all about, boy. Huge primetime game coming up. Vols in the top 10. Revenge spot for Josh Heupel. So many emotions. So many storylines. It's going to be a great time. What's up, Zach?
Yeah, I can't believe we're already here, 4 weeks into the season. I know when the season started, everyone kind of had this game circled as the first major, usually it's Florida, right? With the new SEC schedule, things got mixed up a bit. Now it's this huge road game against Oklahoma with all these incredible storylines surrounding it. And it felt like, it's like you got some time to breathe when the season starts. You got Chattanooga. You get to kind of see if you're real or not against NC State. I mean, obviously NC State's not, Oklahoma or Alabama or these SEC teams you'll play, but they're a Power 5 team that could compete in their conference. You get the warm up against Kent State, which was an experience for those boys on Saturday night from Kent State. Tennessee did not. They came out to attack, and they definitely did in the first half. And that's gone. And now Oklahoma's here. You're getting into SEC play. It's real. I mean, this is when you really find out if this team is going to be a championship contender or not. And, Saturday night, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, whenever that game ends, we're going to have a much better idea of how the season's going to go for Tennessee. Huge win. We're feeling pretty good. A loss, and you kind of got to regroup and see where you go from there.
It's about to get very, very real. And obviously, we're going to talk about all of it on today's show. The Heupel storyline coming back to Oklahoma. We're going to preview the game in full here, give our prediction. And I guess to start out the show, we can talk briefly about that Kent State game. It was pretty much a snuff film. I mean, are we allowed to even show what happened at all in that game? Not for copyright purposes, just because it's not safe for work. I mean, Lordy, Tennessee tore those boys limb from limb. It was, I am confident in saying this, one of the least competitive games I have ever witnessed on a college football field. Just, it was kind of wild how much Tennessee, not kind of, it was, how just crazily better Tennessee was than Kent State. But, hey, we'll talk about that briefly here in just a second, right after I tell you about the good folks at Farm Bureau Health Plans. Farm Bureau Health Plans have been serving Tennesseans for over 75 years. Much has changed in Tennessee over the years, but some has stayed the same. Farm Bureau Health Plans has always valued personal relationships, especially when it comes to good health and good service. Plan on Farm Bureau Health Plans for health, dental, and vision. For better coverage, better rates, and better service, go to fbhp.com/ATOZ or walk into one of their 200 plus locations across the state. That is fbhp.com. Farm Bureau Health Plans. Go get yourself a health plan. Shout out to them. Longtime sponsor. So, yeah, let's talk briefly about that Kent State game, Zach. I guess I'll just start here. Were there any takeaways that you think could be had from that game?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think we learned a lot about Tennessee in that game. Actually, I mean, you don't know because of the opponent how much they can replicate that in the future. But we've seen so many Tennessee teams, even under Heupel, come out just kind of flat in those games. I mean, you saw it last year a little bit with the Austin P game, though some of that was that weird scheme that coach had, which Tennessee will see again later this year, unfortunately. But you've had a few moments where they just didn't look, like they were hitting on all cylinders. Even like the Virginia game, early last season, it felt like Tennessee blew them out, but there was just a lot they left on the table. I feel like this game really showed the focus of this team. I mean, they had their way with Chattanooga right out of the gate, their first time playing together. NC State game, it kind of took them about a quarter to figure out what NC State was doing, and then the route was on there, and they never really let off the gas. So you wonder going into this Kent State game, it's kind of sandwiched in between that NC State, Oklahoma games. It's a terrible opponent. Some people are calling him, I think it was Brent Hubbs at VolQuest. It was one of the worst teams he's seen come in Neyland Stadium in 30 years, which,
yeah,
I don't know if that's completely accurate, though, to be honest. I mean, they played Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh fairly tough. They lost by 30, but they scored 24 against Pittsburgh. So, but they're not a great team, right? And man, Tennessee came out. I mean, like I said earlier, they were attacking, they were playing their football, and it had nothing to do with who was on the other side of the ball. Like, you could tell that that's the kind of intensity that they're going to practice with every day. And that's always been, you hear it from Hall of Famers, whether it's Derek Jeter in baseball or Ray Lewis in football. If you practice that hard when you get into the games, it's easy. You're just doing what you know how to do. And that is exactly what that team was doing on Saturday night against Kent State. Like, they never let their foot off the gas. I mean, the onside kick up 30. That was something, obviously, that the kicker saw. He had the green light to go for it. That's when you can kind of figure that stuff out and work on it. But if it's there in practice, you're going to take it. If it's there in a game, I don't care if you're up by 30, you're going to take it. And, there's benefits from that. You get that on film. Somebody tweeted at me, Kent State gets a benefit from that too, because they probably will not line up like that in conference play. They can thank Tennessee down the road for some things like that Tennessee exploited that maybe some other teams wouldn't. But just all that, the way they attacked the middle of the field, Nico was aggressive throwing the ball. The running backs looked like, it looked like a middle school football team when you got Derrick Henry on one side and just normal kids on the other. That's the way they were running around out there. Every time they got the ball from about 40 yards out, it felt like they were going to score. So this team, it doesn't feel like they're going to have a letdown. Like that South Carolina game in 2022 that we always go back to, or that second half of that Alabama game last season, or the Missouri game, these games where the Tennessee just felt like they didn't show up. We've said that's something that Heupel had to fix. I mean, there's a lot of season left, but it looks like they got it fixed, at least from that game, I feel like. So that was my biggest takeaway more than any scheme or production from the players.
Yeah, probably the craziest part of this game is that they did just play the football that you would when you just think you're going to, the phrase everybody always uses, they thought they were going to roll the football out there and just win the game. Tennessee thought they were just going to roll the football out there and win this game, and they were 200% right. That's exactly what happened. They didn't even have to try. There was, obviously in this game, as you're saying, they played crisp, they played clean, they played good football through that entire thing. I mean,
and most importantly, they played extremely fast in the fourth quarter, and we thank them for that, because that game could have been a lot longer than it was.
God bless, because the first half was super long because Tennessee scored so much. They went to a million commercials. But they played really clean football, which was great. But they also just, all they did was just run the ball. They ran for 400 yards in this game. It was absolutely wild. They didn't have to do a single thing. It was just like, here, Dylan, take the football. And it was a touchdown. That was pretty much how that game went. It was crazy. And really, it was, here you go, Dylan, touchdown. Here you go, Deshaun Bishop, touchdown. It didn't matter who it was. And that game, just the way that it went, was one of the just weirder games you'll ever really see, because Tennessee could have scored 120 points
Oh yeah.
in that game. Like people say that sometimes, like, oh, they were on pace for 120 points. Tennessee could have scored 120 points in that game. They could have.
I mean,
Very
they had what,
realistically.
65 at halftime, and they'd already pulled the starters pretty much.
Yes. Well, I mean, it was just ridiculous.
I mean, dudes were getting run at quarterback that I legitimately had no clue were on the depth chart.
I said that after the game. Guys played in this game that I did not know existed on this team. Like, that is how deep they went. I was like, did they go into the stands and like put a jersey on somebody? What happened here? Like, this is crazy. So, hey, congratulations all around, because that's the exact type of game you want. It's at least as far as the lay public knows, there was no injuries in that game. It went about as well as it could have. Nico didn't play after the early part of the second quarter. And and then Gaston Moore came in and threw a bunch of touchdowns. It was
a dart to Mike Matthews, one of the nicer catches that we saw. And that guy, look, I know we've seen Jalen Hyatt, we've seen Cedric Tillman, we've seen some of these really good high level receivers, guys that are on the roster now. But Mike Matthews, the way he moved, just on that kick return and the couple of catches he had, you could just see that's a different level of talent. Like, that is Sunday. You saw like Malik Neighbors go out this weekend and catch 10 passes in his second NFL game ever. Like, that was that kind of talent, I felt like, for Mike Matthews.
Yeah, it sticks out like a sore thumb. It's like you don't necessarily know how to describe it per se, but you know it when you see it. Like, it is just, oh, yep, that guy's better than everybody else. It's like when you see a guy who's going to D1 football in a high school game and you're like, oh, okay, that's the kid. That's the guy that's going to Tennessee next year. It was just a ton of fun. Ultimately, a ton of fun, while also at the same time, I probably felt bad for Kent State, where I was just like, oh my gosh, like he's already
to
dead.
Those guys, though, they came out and competed in the second half. And I know it was against Tennessee's third, fourth, fifth string, whatever offense was out there. They still went out there and competed hard, and they held Tennessee to 6 points, and they didn't give up anything easy. And they tried to move the ball down the field, almost scored a field goal. Fortunately, they missed, kept the shutout intact, because that's a nice little boost to Tim Banks' defensive numbers at the end of the year, and Heupel's offensive numbers. You got to think about those scoring averages you see later in the year will be boosted a bit because of games like this.
It was as good as it could have gone overall. That's all you could really ask for. And now you're incredibly well rested. And moving into this Oklahoma game, we're going to do a full preview of the game in just a second. But we wanted to first talk about the storylines coming into this game. Obviously, at a baseline, it's a huge game because it's Oklahoma's first SEC game in an official capacity. And it's, Tennessee has the opportunity to show that it's the real deal here and all these things. But the one that has become an overriding narrative, I think, for Tennessee fans is Josh Heupel and his relationship to Oklahoma, and specifically his relationship with former Oklahoma coach Bob Stoops. And the whole thing is like, it's not like it's just straight up hate where just Josh Heupel, you can tell that he's pissed off and he wants revenge on these guys. You can't really tell. Heupel barely talks about it. When he does talk about it, he's extremely respectful. Then you have Stoops coming out here and he makes sort of like a PR statement on Twitter where he's talking about, I forget exactly what he said. First of all, he spelled Josh Heupel's name wrong. He spelled it Huepel, but whatever. He has so little respect for Tennessee that he doesn't even know how to spell this coach's name right. We need to go with these guys. But he did release this statement and just kind of like saying he said he's not going to do interviews about it. And we got some intel that guys who are journalists have been wanting to interview Heupel and Stoops about this, and they're both refusing to talk about it. It's just, I don't know. The whole thing is strange. I'm not sure how you feel about it, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, I've been looking forward to this, I don't know, since Heupel was hired, because I love the storylines that kind of go along with this stuff. And this is such an interesting one, too, just knowing what drives Heupel, how competitive he is. That's something you've heard about that guy from the time he was a quarterback to, Barry Odom talked about it when he hired him at Missouri, how just insanely competitive that guy was. And it's just that trait that we talk about that really takes you to the next level. Those guys like that use stuff to motivate them. So with the Heupel deal, he got let go by Bob Stoops after the 2014 season. They went 8-5. Their offense was okay. It was top 25, but it wasn't leading the nation like they had at times. And they had got away from running the air raid because that's what Bob Stoops wanted to do. It was more of like this zone read type offense that you were seeing at Texas A&M at the time when Johnny Manziel was there, and they didn't really have the quarterback to run it. They had some injuries. There's just a lot of things that didn't go right. And honestly, if you look at it completely objectively, I think they felt like they just need something fresh. Like that. Heupel had been there since 2000. He'd been a coach since 2006. He needed something new, I think. And you got Lincoln Riley. He brought him in to run the offense that really Heupel kind of wanted to run to begin with. They took off. They beat Tennessee the next year, and Riley eventually takes over as the head coach. I think in Heupel's mind, he had not peaked yet. I mean, he wasn't the guy that he wanted to be. You're seeing that now, and I think there's always been a chip on his shoulder of, I led you to a national championship, but you didn't think I was good enough, to lead this offense and to call the shots I wanted to call, and I'm going to prove you wrong. So he went on this journey away from Oklahoma, and he's kind of made himself absent of, he got away from Oklahoma and he's made a name for himself away from that program completely by going to Utah State, Missouri, and UCF, and eventually getting to Tennessee and becoming the coach that he wanted to be and has kind of evolved into. That wouldn't have been possible without leaving Oklahoma. But Stoops is, I've listened to almost every interview this guy's done the past couple of years because of Josh Heupel. He's on radio stations in Oklahoma once a week. He has his own YouTube channel. I've watched his comments a lot, and Heupel comes up from time to time, and it's always this kind of guarded, cagey approach that Stoops takes. He praises Heupel, but he just stops short of the way he might talk about like a Baker Mayfield is different than the way he talks about Heupel. Like you can tell there is definite tension there. Obviously, Heupel doesn't. I mean, I think today was the first time I've heard him call Bob Stoops by name since he got fired. I mean, it was usually the head coach there or, the whatever at Oklahoma. Like he's never really mentioned Bob Stoops by name until today during his press conference. And even that was pretty brief. So, Heupel's always made it about his former teammates and the program, not necessarily Bob Stoops. It's obvious that I'm not saying that Heupel's out there with a grudge where he wants to beat Bob Stoops so bad he can't stand it, but there is this tension that it clearly has not been ever resolved, and I don't know if it ever will be. When you can kind of hold a grudge or a chip on your shoulder for 10 years now, I don't think that's going to suddenly go away. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any pregame like interactions with them. I'm sure Stoops will be at the game. It's Oklahoma's first ever SEC game. I'd be shocked if he's not. Do they find each other on the field? Do they avoid it? I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Stoops clearly doesn't want to talk about it and bring attention to it this week. He's obviously Brent Venables was at Oklahoma a long time when Josh Heupel was there. They all know each other very well. They were all there in 2000 when they won a national championship. So Stoops is kind of trying to be a little bit neutral in that regard, but he kind of made it clear that, he's obviously rooting for Oklahoma in this game. So it's going to be fun.
It is. I guess I do worry that when you have things like this, they can get to a coach. And Heupel is so guarded about it that almost makes me concerned. I just go like, man, I think he has some strong feelings about this. And he just goes, I'm not cracking open the can of worms because we're not doing that. And so
he did seem kind of loose about it today. I would give him that.
He did. That is true. He was cracking jokes and saying, "Oh, I hope that they're silent in respect for our football team inside the stadium." I mean, that's a good joke, but it is just odd all the way around. I'm very interested to see if they greet each other, if they speak. Stoops is just kind of this omnipresent. He's like how Saban's going to be at Alabama, and just sort of always floating around. And I think that Stoops, it has always felt like there's probably some shame there because the narrative has always been that he was protecting his own brother and that that was the real problem on the team. But he used Heupel as a scapegoat. I think UT bag Gumps. He says right here, Stoop tried to change the offense, and when it didn't go right, he blamed the OC and brought in Riley to do what Heupel does better.
That's pretty much it. I mean,
yeah, I think that's a good summation.
Oklahoma fans might view it differently, and that's fine. Look, I get it. It would be like, T. Martin. He's come back as an assistant, and it didn't end great for him. Luckily, that was because of Pruitt and Martin. T wasn't involved, or it didn't get wrapped up in the recruiting stuff. But it wasn't this like fairy tale ending, and that's always the danger of that, right? It's why I never really understand. Sometimes it works out. It's working out for Kirby Smart right now. They'll build statues of that guy in Athens. He's won them 2 championships, no matter what happens from here. It usually doesn't go that way. Rarely does it go that way. Usually it's the Scott Frost, where you get run out of town. They give you an extra year, and it almost makes it worse. Yeah, Heupel's been fired once by his alma mater. I don't know why he would ever consider going back there again, but that's the danger that you run into is usually you end up getting fired. So why would you want to kind of ruin your relationship with the program where you played by going through all that?
We'll see how it goes. It's just something that is a big enough element that I think deserves conversation, but it's one that I think could genuinely affect the game. When you have strong emotions about something, it could make you hate them more, make you want that win more, affect how clearly you think about the game. And only one of those two dudes is a coach of one of these teams. Burn Venables doesn't have this narrative hanging over him of all this history. Although Heupel and Venables do know each other, and Heupel and Oklahoma's OC know each other.
Yeah, they're in each other's weddings, the OC, Seth Luttrell.
And Heupel talked about that some today, that he's already had a bunch of players that he played with reaching out to him, and he's going to see a lot of them when he goes there. I hope that it's just kind of a jovial environment and nothing that gets in the way, but
I think he'll be welcomed back in a very positive way by Oklahoma fans.
I wonder if they're gonna do something for
you
him.
Have to. I mean,
probably
the last national championship.
Yeah,
a Heisman runner-up. I think you have to, even if it's just a thank you, Josh, like a picture of him in an Oklahoma uniform, after the national championship on the screen, and everybody kind of gives him a standing ovation. I don't think it'll be more than that, because he's still the guy you're trying to go out there and beat on Saturday if you're Oklahoma. So I don't think you have this whole like ceremony type thing, but I think there's and Bob Stoops has said that he hopes that they recognize him too in the past year when talking about this game. So I definitely think they will, but I don't think it'll be a overblown, drawn out thing, and it shouldn't be. And, it's about the kids that are out there playing in this game, really.
Yeah, you could just make it something quick and just say, we welcome back Josh Heupel, who was the quarterback of the 2000 Oklahoma Sooners, and that, just have it be that. I bet that's what they'll probably do, is something along those lines, and it'll be fine. But it is something that it's an element to watch out for. It is all I'll say. And just Stoops' statement about it, just odd. Like the whole thing just feels
he's
weird.
A quirky guy.
Yeah, I mean his whole deal retiring sort of before I think it was his time, because he said his dad died on a football field, I believe was the story, and he didn't want to do the same thing. Like that's a surprisingly cogent move for a guy who was a good football coach, because most of those guys are complete psychos who probably want to die on the sideline of a football field. And so yeah, he is an odd guy, but yeah, we'll find out sooner or later what exactly is going to happen there. What is it? 7:30 on Saturday, 7:45.
Lots of primetime games this year so far.
It does seem like the big games, ESPN's going to lean towards late.
Yeah.
Which I guess makes sense. It kind of gives them a distinct spot, because it sort of seems like it's Fox does noon,
and they've had some good noon games.
They have.
It's just nice, because sometimes that noon window can be a snoozer.
Yes, but I also liked that South Carolina LSU was noon, and obviously, I mean, that was the most compelling game of the entire weekend.
Yeah, that was a wild one.
It really was, and Lordy Shane Beamer blew that one sky high. Oh my gosh, what are you? They blamed it on the refs, but I mean, if you watch it objectively,
Yeah, there were
those
some rough
guys.
calls both ways, to be honest, and there were some
Yeah,
just dumb things, both sides. Neither
classic.
team really went out and won that game.
No, it was classic SEC refs, just classic. Like it's always LSU. LSU's always in a game like that, just total nonsense, like
That's true.
whatever. Dating back to Les Miles, like that's their whole mo. But
The Ed Ogeron era was so much more fun than Brian Kelly. It's just uncomfortable to watch that guy. It's just,
and like you can kind of tell, like LSU fans don't like him, and they and his
we're hoping for the best, but
yeah, they're sort of like, I hope this guy wins, but realistically, this team doesn't look that good. I mean, Nussmeier, like LSU's not that good. Nussmeier's not that good. Their defense is horrible. The only reason that they got stops in that game is because South Carolina's QB got hurt.
yeah, they got saved by a couple of transcendent players last year, and Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors. But
well, good luck.
Oh
to
well,
them.
yeah.
But the noon slot is with Fox, 3:30 CBS, and it maybe ESPN with.
Yeah, they do have a 3:30 still on.
They do.
ABC.
And I've noticed the new addition is the 12:45 SEC Network game. That was Tennessee's first week. We played in that one, and now that's been recurring each week so far.
Which pushes that last one to 7:45, which is what we got this past week. And again, thankfully, the second half went pretty quick.
Well, that's not going to be the case this week. There's going to be a ton of commercials. I have no doubt. It'll probably be
it's 95 degrees, so there's going to be plenty of cramps, suspect or not. There's going to be lots of injuries, I'm sure.
Well, let's preview that game, because obviously that's why everybody's here. You want to know what everybody thinks is going to happen in the Tennessee-Oklahoma game. So let's talk about it now, right after I tell you about the good folks at Zen Sports. Football is back. And what better way to bet on the big games than with Zen Sports? You got the $100 no danger first wager when you sign up. If your first bet loses, you'll be reimbursed for the amount of your bet up to $100. And for football season, Zen Sports is launching a revamped betting platform for both college football and NFL. I have seen it. They sort of like redone the homepage and everything. It looks real nice. But what's better, Zen Sports offers daily promotions, including odds boosts, same-game parlays, no danger wagers, and a whole lot more. They even have a VIP rewards program where you can earn monthly comps at sporting events, concerts, and even sportsbook bonuses. Go to zensports.com/VIP to check that out. What are you waiting for? Start betting with Zen Sports. Get going and download their app at zensports.com today. Zen Sports. Betting just got better. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. No danger wager. Limited to plus 500 odds to qualify. Boosted odds are derived from equivalent parlay bets offered in Tennessee. Must be 21 or older in Tennessee to bet. Zen Sports. We appreciate them. Tennessee, Oklahoma. 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 6:30 local. And what's Oklahoma in the new AP? 15, I think. Did they move up?
I'm not sure. Something in that range.
Tennessee hopped Missouri, which I think is right. Missouri kind of struggled with Boston College. Tennessee won by 71 points, which no matter who you're playing is kind of crazy. And so they hopped Missouri and old Dorkowitz over there. And they're up to number 6. It's a huge game. There is a lot to break down in this one, but we'll start sort of your high level thoughts on this one, Zach. How are you feeling about the Sooners?
Man, this is a tough one because Oklahoma's got a pretty good defense. Brent Venables is a defensive guy. They go against a similar offense in practice every day. Now, that doesn't mean that Oklahoma or anyone really runs it the same way that Tennessee does. Tennessee's, Heupel coaches it a certain way. Like, you don't just say you're going to run this offense and do what Tennessee does. That's part of the magic that they have in Knoxville right now. But still, they know the concepts. They know what Heupel wants to do. They're very familiar with it. Obviously, that goes both ways. But I think this defense will probably be the most adept outside of maybe Georgia later this year at possibly stopping or at least giving Tennessee's offense some problems. So we're really going to find out just how good I think Nico is how good this running game is and what they can do against a really talented and well-coached defense. Offensively, I think Tennessee's defense should be okay, here with Oklahoma. They haven't been explosive offensively. They haven't been dynamic. Their offensive line's banged up. They might be getting some guys back, but I don't know if their center their center position's been an issue. Some clips of him getting blown up last week against, was it Tulane that they were playing, I believe. Yep. So if that's the case, that could be a long day, for their offense. I don't know if their quarterback's been great down the field, really. So it's going to be some short passes, probably. What we've seen teams try to do against Tennessee to try to mitigate the damage from James Pierce and Tennessee's defensive line. I think, I feel like Tennessee should be able to outscore this team, even if Oklahoma's defense has some success. I feel like Tennessee's defense is going to, be more successful against that offense. I don't see this Oklahoma offense being significantly more prolific than like an NC State at this point. I mean, I think they're better, but I don't think they're, worlds better than NC State. It doesn't, at least we haven't seen that yet. And if that's the case, it's just hard to imagine Tennessee not being able to score more points than Oklahoma. The only concern really, obviously, is playing on the road. And how does Nico react to that? He says that he loves those environments. We're going to find out how much he really does on Saturday night, because it's going to be the craziest one he's played in yet as an opponent. How do they handle it? They haven't handled it really well in the past at times. We've talked about it, the South Carolina game, Missouri, Florida, Alabama last year. They've got to prove they can go and win this game in like a primetime environment on the road. Everybody watching you. It's not like going to Kentucky and winning at Kentucky like they've done twice in primetime. This is a much bigger challenge just because of the atmosphere you're going to be in. That to me is the biggest unknown, more than what happens, schematically on the field.
Yeah, there's a ton working for Tennessee in that. I think when you look at it on paper, Tennessee is the superior football team, especially when you look at the injury situation for Oklahoma right now. But then also you have Tennessee's biggest weakness coming into play, which for Heupel has been winning on the road in huge primetime environments and not having those moments where things compound on themselves and making huge mistakes that become even more mistakes. And, I think the primest example to me is Florida last year, where you were better. You were better than Florida, even with Joe Milton. I've heard people talking about the game. Well, it was Joe Milton, the quarterback. You were better than Florida, even with Joe Milton last year. And just the wheels came flying off. And so can you, with your superior football team, finally overcome that? Can this be Tennessee's version of the 2015 Oklahoma game in reverse, where Nico is Baker Mayfield? And now I would say, don't get down by 17 points, please. Let's not do that. Mm-hmm. But, can Nico, under the lights, be that guy that emerges and you go, oh, man, Tennessee has an absolute dude under center? Like, that's the opportunity that Tennessee has here. Now, this thing's going to be won and lost in the trenches, I think, because Oklahoma's defensive line, good. Their linebackers, really on their defense, their linebackers are probably their best unit. They have Stutzman, who I think he's their leading tackler, or was their leading tackler against Tulane. I was looking at it earlier today. Stutzman, they have a kid that his name is R. Mason Thomas, I think. And you hear like R. Mason Thomas. You're like, what does the R stand for? And I clicked on it, and it stands for R. It's R, like the letter R, just R. Mason Thomas. So, but they have that guy, and he had 3 sacks in this last game against Tulane. I mean, he just went crazy on him. And so, like, they got dudes across that defense. Bowman is the other kid. He's in the secondary for Oklahoma, and he looks like a dude. They got guys. On the flip side, Tennessee has Nico. Tennessee has Dylan Sampson. Tennessee has a solid offensive line. Lance Hurd sat out of the game, so he's rested up, hopefully not injured. And you have an improved offensive line from last year. And then you get to the wide receivers and, just Brazel, Brew McCoy, Squirrel White. just stacks on stacks of dudes on that offense with the ability, and then you add in Josh Heupel's coaching ability, and how does that stack up? Because Oklahoma does have that, and then when it comes to Tennessee's defense, if Tennessee's defensive line doesn't destroy Oklahoma in this game, something has gone awry. Because these boys were getting pushed around by Tulane. I watched a big chunk of that Tulane game, almost the entire thing. They're getting pushed around by Tulane, and they have injuries upon injuries. They're dipping down into like a third string center right now. Like, it is bad news, especially on that offensive line and their wide receivers. Their best wide receivers are out. Their best offensive linemen are out. This quarterback is young and kind of getting pressured on every single drop back and just hasn't had a chance to really show himself. I'm sure he has plenty of talent, but as of right now, he's nowhere close to Nico. And so you put all of those things together, and as I already mentioned, Tennessee's the better team here. And you said it, Tennessee can outscore Oklahoma because of its defense and because of its offense. Combined complementary football, as Butch Jones would always say. When you add all those ingredients together, but can they perform specifically on offense against this defense when the lights are bright and on? And I get the feeling that it's not going to be 100% smooth and breezy, but I get the feeling that they can. That just initially, and I mean, you hear Oklahoma. I listened to a bunch of Oklahoma coverage. And I think you did. You tweeted about an Oklahoma podcast you're listening to today, Zach. They sound like they are ready to get their head beat in, and like they're just like, oh boy, this is not looking good for us. I don't know how this is going to go. And maybe it's just cope to make themselves feel better, but I don't know. It almost feels too good right now.
Yeah, I don't really care what those guys say, because we heard the same stuff from South Carolina fans in 2022 before Tennessee played them, and we saw how that went. And I think that was a learning moment for Josh Heupel and everybody at Tennessee, that you can't take any game for granted, especially conference games, no matter how bad the opponent is. And that goes back to what we were talking about, the way they played against Kent State. No, on paper and just logically, nothing points to Tennessee should lose this game. Like, I'm not saying it should be easy. I'm not saying it should be a blowout, because you're going to Oklahoma and playing an SEC team that has good players. But it's, a team with an offense that's still trying to find their way. It's a new offensive coordinator who, Seth Luttrell has been around these offenses for a while. Obviously, he played with Josh Heupel at Oklahoma in the air raid. But it almost feels like, okay, you lost Jeff Lebby, to Mississippi State, who was their offensive coordinator. Let's just go get this guy, because we know this guy. And, it was a very, I don't want to say it's a Butch Jones hire, because Heupel has promoted guys and it's made sense and it's worked because of, kind of the way that his system works and the way his culture has worked. But in this instance with Luttrell, it just hasn't felt like it's really meshed quite yet for them. And maybe it will, I don't know. But anytime you have a first year, new offensive coordinator like that, there's going to be some hiccups from time to time. I mean, Tennessee went through it with Joey Hosley last year. Even though he wasn't the primary play caller, you still notice the difference without Alex Golesh. And a lot of that was because of the quarterback that you had. But still, there were moments where we're like, what are they calling? Why are we seeing the same screen pass 7 times in a row? Take a shot somewhere. So there's going to be, some of that where the continuity just isn't quite there yet with Luttrell and the offense. And they have a redshirt freshman quarterback who, he doesn't have the same benefits of Nico, where Nico has kind of been in this offense basically since the end of the 2022 season, and nothing really has changed. Yeah, you lost Golesh, but that was right. I think Golesh was actually gone by the time Nico showed up at the end of 2022. So it's been with Heupel and Hosley for almost 2 years now. The continuity there has been unreal. So it's just a lot of advantages that I feel like Tennessee has that Oklahoma doesn't. It's pretty hard to go out there and execute and perform, though, and not get rattled on the road. I mean, that to me is just the biggest thing. There's nothing more important than that. Handling a little bit of adversity when it gets thrown your way. If you go 3 and out in your first drive and Oklahoma goes down and scores, what do? Suddenly you're down 7-0. How do you respond in that moment?
It's just really bad timing for Oklahoma, given, maybe even just a couple of months with this quarterback. By the end of the season, I'm sure he'll be better. And given a healthy offensive line, two things that you can't really control, time and health there.
Yeah.
Given those two things, they're probably going to be a pretty decent team overall. But it's just poor timing. It's how a lot of the Florida games have felt for Tennessee, where you're just like, if we could have just played them later in the season, we were a lot better than we are now.
That Felipe Franks touchdown was 7 years ago today, by the way.
Oh Lordy, let's not talk about it. 7 years ago today.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Oh god. This is a 100% true story. Was watching that game live with a whole set of people, Tennessee fans. It happened. Everybody there is like, oh no. And I was kind of just numb to it at that point. And I turned to everybody that was there and I said, you're going to be happy that happened. I swear. I was like, that sucks. Seriously, you're going to be happy this happened. This guy Butch sucks.
That was the game where everybody was like, yeah, it's okay. It's time. Everybody's on board now.
Exactly. It took a flip after that and it was over. But that aside, it's just poor timing for Oklahoma. And so if Heupel can learn specifically from that 22 South Carolina game, going into Georgia and kind of laying an egg, okay, they're an absolute machine, and it
wasn't that much of an egg anyway. They lost by like 14. It wasn't.
That's true.
It wasn't too bad.
Yeah,
not like Georgia. Georgia fans had that as like a 65-3 blowout.
Yeah, if you talk to them, they won that game 100-3. And in reality, I think they only won by like 13. I have to go back and look. But that's understandable. But here in this spot, you're the superior team. Everybody kind of knows it. They are in a dire spot with these injuries. You have an offense that's better than their defense, even though their defense is pretty solid. I mean, your offense just across the board is extremely talented and really good. And you have the best offensive mind in the game calling plays. And so you look at all of that and you just say, learn from this in the past. Whatever it was, I don't care. I don't care what it was.
It was Connor Stallion sharing signals is what it was.
That is what it was. And here's what we should do is go hire Connor Stallions to be on Josh Heupel's staff. National championship incoming. No, I kid. Although if you do watch that documentary, I did kind of walk away being like, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to have a guy like that on this Tennessee staff.
Well, that guy would do anything for Michigan.
Oh, absolute psycho. But I just think that this is the most golden, perfect opportunity to say, I am free. I have let go of this past that has been chasing me, just this one element that I can't get over, like Tennessee basketball making the Elite Eight or Tony Vitello losing in the College World Series.
I thought you were wrapping up a sermon there for a second. That was
We are free, brethren. please stand and come to the altar. But seriously, it's the perfect opportunity to just get this monkey off your back and just say no more. We win these primetime games now because Nico's the quarterback. Because we've been there, we've done that, and we are delivered from our past. And hope. I mean, how special would that be? This what an incredible chance this is. In every single for Heupel to get this revenge, for you to get that monkey off your back with not winning in prime time, all of these things, the demons that you can just kill all at once, like you did with the Alabama game in 22. It's just another one of those, and I am saying every prayer I can that they'll do it. Come on, boys!
It really is such a massive game opportunity. You've got such a chance, and who knows how this shakes out. Like, the goal is to get to the playoff. If you get to the playoff and you lose in the first round, go get them again next year. I think any program making these kind of drastic decisions because you don't win in the playoff, maybe if it happens like 4 years in a row, the other team's got good players too. Like, sometimes it just isn't your day and it doesn't work out. Whatever. Just get to the playoff, give yourself a chance. You win this game, I mean, you put yourself in a situation where you could, you want to go beat Alabama, obviously, but you could almost lose to Alabama and Georgia and still get in at 10-2. I mean, this game really sets you up so nicely for the rest of the season. You can't have any letdown games. You can't just roll into Fayetteville and think you're going to beat Arkansas after, if you beat Oklahoma, or, same with Mississippi State. Kentucky's always, you saw what Georgia happened with Georgia against Kentucky there. They can be a tough game no matter what, unless Will Levis is there, in which case it's not that tough, but he's not anymore. So, you just set yourself up so nicely for the rest of the season if you can win this game. And if you don't, everything's still there, but I feel like the momentum gets interrupted a little bit. You're going to start hearing some outside noise that isn't really necessary, but it will happen. It's huge, but I like this team's approach. I think they have a really good mindset that everyone's bought into. I think they have such strong team leadership from Dylan Sampson, Omari Thomas, Bryson Eason, Brew McCoy, Squirrel, like everybody on this team that's been there. And then the transfers you brought in, when you listen to them talk, you really start to understand Heupel's portal philosophy. Like it's a lot different than at Florida State or even at Ole Miss, where you just take the best player possible, and where they're talented, we'll figure it out. Like Heupel's only bringing in guys that really fit this culture perfectly, and he's done that with guys like Jermon McCoy and Jaco Thomas. So just the mindset that they have, like it's us versus us type of mindset. It sounds cliche, but that's really how you have to approach it. We go out there and we play as hard as we can, the way that we do it, no matter who's on the other side. And you trust that good things will happen if you do that. You compete your tail off to where you literally leave nothing out there. If it's good enough, it's good enough. And if it's not, it's not. And it really feels like that's their mindset.
Yeah, what did he say? The opponent is nameless and faceless.
Yeah,
in the post game this week, and I was like, that's such a great line. That's so good. It is. It's just the perfect chance to get to shed so many demons, and it's been the year of that for Tennessee. National championship in baseball, Elite Eight in basketball. Hey, here comes football. Let's do this thing where we break some curses in football too. It would be great. So we're gonna predict the outcome of the game. First, we got a few good comments over here. UT Bad Gum says these players likely care more about it than Heupel. They want to go in there and dominate for their coach.
I would say on that right there, I think everybody in that facility is very aware of everything, because how could you not be, right? Like we all know it. We've been talking about it for 3 years now, basically. But I don't think it's like, okay, this is the focus of this week. We got to win this game for Josh Heupel. I think there's just kind of that unsaid like edge that the team will carry this week, where it's like that's not the focus. The focus is still playing our game, but there's a little extra juice. Got to be, just because of the situation.
Absolutely, as there should be. Oliver Holmes says, I'm hoping Josh and Tennessee put their foot up OU and Bob's ass. I don't know that I would say it so explicitly, but I agree. I want Tennessee to steamroll Oklahoma. It would be so fun. Vol for Life says, when the Titans fail me, I have the Vols to fall back on. Thank you, Jesus. Oh, man. And that Titans game was not fun.
Anytime your head coach looks at your quarterback and says, what the F are you doing? It's not. It's not good. Second game of the year.
Yeah, things aren't going so well. Timothy says, got to turn Sampson and the RBs loose so Nico doesn't have to do so much. If Tennessee can run on Oklahoma, with Oklahoma's strength being its defensive line and linebackers, if you can run on it, this game's over. If you are running it down Oklahoma's throat, it is done. Because they have a very solid run defense. Elias, he commented a bunch of stuff, but there was one. Yeah, I wanted to highlight this one. Elias said, I think Heupel has a tiny vindictive streak in him when he feels he's been treated unfairly. I don't think it's tiny.
Yeah.
I think behind closed doors, this dude is petty, and he wants to see justice come to fruition. And when we had Grant Frierking on last year, who played for Heupel and now works at On3 and was sort of a de facto coach over there. I mean, he told us that Heupel is uber competitive, and this man forgets nothing. And he wants it more than anybody around this program. So yeah, I think that's exactly right. Ashton says, does anyone know Heupel's coaching record in Oklahoma Stadium?
I think that's a.
I
uh,
saw that, but
yeah.
like I don't.
Well, I know he beat Tennessee there in
Yeah,
2014 as
that's
the
true.
offensive coordinator. So, yeah,
Yeah,
he's
I
won some games there. I mean, obviously.
well, he said in the press conference today that he thinks even including scrimmages, he's never stood on the opposing sideline inside uh is it's Memorial
It
Stadium.
is Gaylord Memorial
Yeah,
Stadium.
Gaylord Memorial Stadium.
Yeah.
Ashton had a typo there.
That's so unfortunate, Ashton.
It's a crazy
It
typo.
happens to us all.
But yeah, so we appreciate the comments. Thanks to everybody for watching. If you have a score prediction, drop it into the comments, as I know a lot of you do. And I'll throw it to you, Zach. Who's winning this football game? Can Tennessee go in
Now, I feel
and
like we've been
slay the
pretty
demons?
we've been pretty. It wasn't a typo apparently. We've been pretty on it. I feel like we kind of predicted. I mean, I can't remember what I said last week, but I think I had them. Did I have them at 70? It was close to it. I think I might have gave Kent State a field goal though, and I thought the NC State game would be pretty much in Tennessee's favor by a lot of points. This one, I could see it going that way, but that's really tough to predict. I could see it being like 2022 LSU if Tennessee really gets out there rolling
Yep.
and Oklahoma
Yes.
just kind of gets down early. I could definitely see that, but that's tough to predict because you got everything's got to click on all cylinders. Every pass has got to be on the money. I still think Tennessee wins this game, though. Definitely. I would say they win maybe like 41 to 28. I would say it stays close and they pull away in the second half type deal.
41-28. I like it a lot. I mean, that would be ideal. I'm going to say it's going to be closer than that. I think there will be an adjustment period coming out, which concerns me. I think if you don't, this will go two ways. Tennessee comes out fast and they blow them out, and that's that. What I think is probably the most likely thing in my mind when I think about how exactly this game sets up is that Tennessee will not come out fast. I don't think they'll get buried in a hole because I just don't think Oklahoma has the offense. I think Tennessee's defense will be able to be up in Jackson Arnold's grill all night long. And so I don't think they'll be able to just run it up really quick and here you go. Now Tennessee's down, 17 points. But I think it could start slow where you're down, 10-3 and you're looking just going, okay, let's calm down. Let's focus. And then when Tennessee settles in, they suddenly, okay, we're the superior team. We're going to go out here and we're going to play our game. And they get it together. And I think they also, I believe that they'll win and finally shed the Josh Heupel can't win in primetime thing. And the exact score, I'll go 34-24. So I'll say a 10-point win for Tennessee. And that, it probably goes something like you're up 27-24 and you score a backbreaking touchdown and you just sort of assert your will and go, nope, we're the better team. Good night. And that's how Tennessee wins this one. I so badly want it to go like the 22 LSU game.
Man.
That would, to just crush their soul, would be so satisfying.
If it does, if they blow them out and it is like a 45-10 just beat down, it's gonna happen. And I'm not saying it'll be me, but you're gonna start hearing like 2019 LSU stuff at that point.
You are. Yes. Because it would be that to have that exact outcome where you win this game by like 30, you're going to be that style of team. A defense
and you got
more
the
than
quarterback.
capable.
You have the quarterback.
You do. And that's just facts. I don't know. Cuban Missile says 48-13 Vols.
Please.
that would make me so happy. Ashton says, I don't know if they can score 28 legitimately. Something like 45-48-20. and that's being nice. Hey, again, that
That's
is
true. I mean, that's true. And Tennessee's off. I mean, they haven't played, an SEC game since Vanderbilt last year, but they haven't allowed a touchdown in a long time. So that would be, 28 points would be saying Oklahoma's going to score 4 of them against Tennessee.
I mean, their running game, Oklahoma's running game is nearly non-existent. And so you have to pass against Tennessee. And then if Arnold's a sitting duck back there, now let's say he's capable with his legs. He ran around all over the place against Tulane. That was really, his legs are really the only reason they beat Tulane. They
Turn Carter loose and just let him follow that guy.
There better be some spectacular interceptions for Tennessee in this game, because Jackson Arnold threw a Will Levis interception in this last game. I mean, and I don't know if it was as bad as the Will Levis against the Bears interception, but
that's all time bad.
It was up there because it was a pick six. I mean, he just threw it right to this guy.
Did he surrender Cobra on the field after doing it, or is that just the Will Levis thing?
It wasn't as memeable as Levis, unfortunately, but I mean, it was just terrible. Where it was one of those places where you went, "Are you kidding me? Like, what are you doing, son? What, like, you are a 5-star player at a proud program. Is this really the what you're gonna go out there and do?" And so I think with given enough pressure and you can keep him contained, like you said, send out the speediest dude you have to be spy on this guy all night long, and I think it's all right there for Tennessee, and Lord willing, it ends up being a blowout. I said a 10-point win. You said, what was your
40? What did I say? 41-28. Is that what it was?
Yeah. So it's
13.
I can't do math. 13. Yeah. So we're hanging out in the same stratosphere there. I mean, Steven does say Nico scored 35 against the top 4 defense. Now it was the bowl game version of Iowa's defense, but that is true.
I don't think they had anybody opt out of that game. I think they were pretty much full strength on defense in that game. Maybe one guy,
one lineman who was like a true blue NFL guy, I want to say, sat out.
But for the most part, yeah, it was their defense.
I just, oh man, and Steven S, is Oklahoma top 10 defense? They're not. Looked at it today. I think total defense like 20 something. So good. I mean, it's a solid defense as we already went through. I mean, they got preseason All-Americans. Stutzman is kind of the main dude you'll hear about. Hey, I am saying every prayer I can that this is blowout town for Tennessee, because God, that would just be so satisfying to not at that point to not just get over all your stuff, but to just kill Oklahoma on their home field would just be so awesome, and just be like, just send that message, because you know what's going to end up happening if that happens with Tennessee. It's going to be the entirety of all other SEC fan bases tweeting at Oklahoma and going, "Welcome to the SEC, losers."
Oh, yeah.
Hello. And Tennessee will have done that on behalf of the real SEC, as an original member, as the SEC created in Knoxville, Tennessee, actually. Please and thank you. Yeah. All right. So that's it. Anything else for the folks at home before we bounce out of here, Zach?
No, I guess that's it. Hopefully, Oklahoma fans oblige Heupel's request and are quiet when Tennessee's on offense. That would be the ultimate sign of respect. If they want to honor him, that's how. I
agree. I think, frankly, they are a disgusting, classless fan base if they don't do that.
Yeah, and Oklahoma fans are really great. Like, I remember them at the 2015 game. They were probably like one of the classiest fan bases I've seen come through Neyland. So hopefully that continues.
I was at the 2015 game. I remember nothing but nice Oklahoma fans, but I do remember after the game, Oklahoma players coming
Striker
and taunting the crowd, flipping people off, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, Butch was like, Butch said something to the linebacker Striker, like after the game, like have some class or something, which is like, just don't kick field goals from the 1-yard line. You don't have to worry about it, Butch.
Yeah. You would have won.
Which he's still doing, by the way. He did that in Michigan, down 18, and they only lost that game by 10.
An admirable effort. I did see that from Arkansas State. Michigan State.
Butch's kid made some plays. Like,
really?
Adam Jones, yeah. He was out there making some catches against Michigan on the road.
Good for him.
Yeah.
I want Butch to lose pretty much any game he coaches, but hey, good for Butch's kid. All right. Charlie Burris, Zach Reagan, thank you to everybody who tuned in. Let's see, we got Clint, Ashton, Elias, Steven, Travis, Timothy, Vols for life, Oliver, UT. We could not thank you enough. Can't do it without you. Charlie Burris, Zachary. That's the 5th time I've said that now. Go here. This is what I did mean to say. A to Z Sports Tennessee Vols. In the description of this video, you will see it. The link is right there. It's also in the comments here. I put it in the live comments on the YouTube video. So go subscribe there. Clips from this show, original content coming ASAP right into your YouTube feed. And it's a dedicated channel. No Titan stuff over there. It is A to Z Sports Tennessee Vols. Thank you once again. That's actually it. And we will talk to y'all next week.
See you guys later.